those are my roots, and I kind of like tossed it away aside, admittedly, and then coming back to it full circle, it's like, wow, I actually like love this music like way more than I ever did. And I mean, I can say like now, like it's definitely like my favorite style of music to listen to, just because it's so broad and there's no limitation with it.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
I agree with that too. Like exactly, like going off and like finding like yeah, like we went through like playing like death metal bands and like deathcore
Hmm.
that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
expanding like throughout all these things, and then going back to finding like like your roots, like you're saying, it's like the exact same flow of things is like how
yeah.
it all happened. What I think is too like with new metal is just like there's something like there's just everything's unique, and I don't know, there's just something about it like.
This episode has been a couple of months in the making, and I thought I would have this out earlier, but life happens, so here it is. New metal is a topic that I've been talking for a while now, and it's truly back, I would say. The reason I can say it is last night I was at a show here in Mumbai, India. It was a new metal tribute of sorts. One of the bands was covering songs by Slipknot and System of a Down, and the other were covering Linkin Park songs. Yeah, this is a band called Nemophilus from Pune. They put out an original album last year called The Iceberg. Now, I was particularly curious because while I've heard about a lot of bands covering Linkin Park off and on, I haven't really been for a tribute in ages, right? And trust me, I'm still trying to figure out the exact ways to describe seeing 200 odd people singing, crawling in the end, and I'm pretty sure most of them were like still in their diapers or even younger when the songs first came out, right? I mean, this was 20 odd years ago that the songs came out, but the energy in that room was something else. So I knew it was the right moment for me to release this episode because it's all about new metal and we get nostalgic. So I spoke to two American bands, Timepiece and Memorrhage. Some of you may remember Memorrhage. I spoke to Garry Brents last year and we got nostalgic all about new metal. I've done another episode also on new metal with a couple of Indian metalheads. I'm going to leave the link to both in the show notes. Now, this intro has gone on way longer, so you know what? Switch over your caps to the back, grab your favorite beverage, and let's get nostalgic about new metal. Here it is. A year ago, I did a chat about new metal, and almost a year to the date, I'm back again discussing new metal. But this time, we're discussing it with three Americans. And not only are they American, but they're also musicians and play in bands. So, yeah, let's do this in alphabetic order if that's easiest. Why don't you guys introduce yourself?
So I'm Billy. I play guitar in the band Timepiece.
I'm waiting for your
Um,
introduction, Gary. Come on.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm next. Yeah, that's right. I'm Gary. I've been on here with Peter before. Glad to be back here again. If you don't know me, kind of just like a primarily a solo musician. I have a couple or several projects. Memorrhage, Gonemage. Was Had a two-person project called Car and Air. And then almost always kind of just creating different projects. I like so much music, so I'm just like always creating different projects. But yeah, yeah, Gonemage and Memorrhage, kind of two main projects right now.
I'm Peter, the other Peter, and I sing in timepiece and
Wow.
do
So,
all sorts of stuff.
first of all, thanks so much, guys, for joining me. And I have to insert this joke because I always do this when Gary's on the podcast. Is hopefully by the time this episode released, Gary has not put out another album.
Maybe
But
not. Maybe not. Yeah, slowing down a little bit this year.
okay. But I mean, for those listening and kind of wondering, right? I mean, I have my hat on backwards because hey, it's new metal. Uh,
Hey,
had to do that throwback of sorts. But one of the
yeah,
reasons I wanted to get all of us together, and you know, Gary and I've spoken multiple times. We talked about Memorrhage in the past. But one of the cool things is because I follow you on social media, Gary, is that's how I got onto Timepiece. And
yeah,
some of the listeners who've heard the episode from a couple of months ago would have heard a track by Timepiece, which I played, Changes. So I thought it would be great just to get all of us in a room. And yeah, instead of just discussing it as, oh my God, let's break down the album and stuff like that. I thought let's just get nostalgic because sometimes I like doing that and discuss new metal. So yeah, let's kick this one off. Uh, okay, whoever wants to go first with this one, I think I'll go last because I think everyone's heard my story multiple times. Uh, when did you first hear new metal, or what we call new metal?
For me, it was like in when Linkin Park dropped like the In the End
Oh
video,
yeah,
and I started hearing the
yeah.
song on like, you remember those old, like, before YouTube was a thing, they used to have like weird Dragon Ball Z compilations with like
Oh yeah.
heavy stuff playing, and I was like,
Yep.
what is this?
Yeah,
That was it. I think, well, me and Pete grew up together, so it
I
was
was gonna
kind of a
say,
shared
yeah, we
Awesome.
experience.
we like met based off of being like we both like Linkin Park.
I love it.
wow.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, my mom, both our moms got us like into that or like loved that band or like that kind of music growing up. Like they were just always like his mom always putting us on music. My mom always listening to stuff too. Like she had like a what's it called? Like a burnt CD. It was like
Oh
before
man.
hybrid came out. It was just the singles and it was like her boyfriend had the CD and I would just listen to it. It had One Step Closer and Points of Authority and In the End on it. And then like I don't remember what else was on. I think it was like it might have been like Incubus on there too.
Mhm.
Um I just remember listening strictly to like the Linkin Park songs. And, like yeah. It's probably
Mix.
like the biggest influence like throughout life.
Hell yeah. Mixed CDs. They went a long way.
I know they really
For
did.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, just to kind of chime in, the most underrated thing I think in the 2000s, or like everyone talks about mp3.com and Napster and
Mhm.
stuff like that, was the ability to burn your own CDs, right? I think through
Yeah.
that,
It was huge.
yeah, the fact, like, I still remember in my friend circle, and this is like early 2000s, right? 2001, 2, we had one friend in our entire group of 8 to 10 boys in our
Mhm.
school who had a CD burner. So between all of us just in a year had to buy one CD, and everyone had copies of it by the end of the year, right?
Circulate.
So
Yep.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
how it circulated. And I did for a long time when I grew older struggle with the ethics of it. But then the fact that like you meet underground musicians who are like, what the fuck, you guys were burning our CDs like in the Middle East? That is so metal, right? So I was like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
But okay, riffing on that, was Linkin Park a big influence on you also, Gary?
A little bit actually. So early on, I guess we'll backtrack a little bit for I guess technically the first time that I heard new metal was Korn. But I was a little kid. So this was like right after, well, maybe a year after their first album. So like 95. But I was like 7. And it was like my friend and his older brother. I was like over there in like a sleepover, and they were not allowed to watch like MTV um, after a certain time. So at night, we kind of kept the TV down, and uh, it might have been MTV2, although I can't remember if that was a thing yet. Either way, it was a block of music videos, like rock and metal music videos, and Korn's Blind came on, and at that time, I mean, I'm a little kid. I didn't really know any aggressive music. Like I think I liked, like Green Day, The Offspring, Smashing Pumpkins, but like I didn't have any CDs yet. I just knew, songs on the radio, or things like my friends would play. But when that video played, I really didn't know what to think of it. But that was like, technically the first moment that I heard what became, what we know as nu metal. Although I didn't get to own a Korn CD until maybe 1998, when I just started getting like a lunch allowance. I actually used some of that money to just like buy a few CDs here and there. Like the first, I guess at that point, the first 3 Korn CDs, like all at the same time. And I was like, oh, wow, I have this awesome like collection now, just 3 CDs, or like I had some other ones too.
That's metal.
And then yeah,
skipping lunch for CDs.
Yes, that was my thing. That was my
yeah.
thing. And some of my friends sort of caught on, and they're like, yeah, we should just skip lunch and buy CDs. And that was just a thing we did. And then so that time, 98, or was it 99? Yeah, whenever Hybrid Theory came out. Can't remember if that was 98 or 99. Might have been 99. But I remember, or was it? Okay, yeah. So
that's what we were like. We were like 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we were. That's why they were like for us, because we weren't really quite old enough to hear Korn and like Limp Bizkit at the time. We
had to backtrack for that stuff.
Yeah. Like I only heard Limp Bizkit and like Disturbed and stuff like that, and like Korn from my cousin who was like 10 years older, and we had CDs. And me and my other cousin, because we're the same age, we would just like listen. I remember like we would jam Limp Bizkit. I had no, like I was like 5 years old. I had no idea the context of it. Like, when I got older, I was like, it wasn't cool to like Limp Bizkit, so I like felt like I hopped on the bandwagon. Then we like start listening to them again. I was, oh shit, this is cool. It's so cool. I was like, why did I go on that?
We come full circle.
Of not liking them for a while.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's so funny, because the same trajectories, sort of coming like full circle with nu metal and the bands associated with it. Obviously, by 2000 for sure, got super deeper into all of those bands, and especially with Hybrid Theory coming out, because it was like, they were kind of seen as like, I guess if you could call it like the second wave of that sound, and they brought it to another level. It's like, whoa, these guys are like almost like perfecting this sound that like almost it was like a perfection of what Korn and Limp Bizkit were doing, fused with more accessibility of like alternative rock, mixed with all that aggression and stuff on Hybrid Theory. And I was like, this is really cool. And then, me and all my friends got it super into it. And then like Slipknot, of course, like all at that same time. It was like a division where like some friends only like Slipknot, some only like Linkin Park, but I liked both. Like I was like, I like all of this. So yeah, it was cool. Just kind of like that was like the upbringing of the nu metal sound and culture. Which is cool.
It's very broad. It's very broad.
Exactly. It's so broad.
It's like it goes from like really like thrashy kind of metal, like super hip hop, to like where you're saying Linkin Park's kind of like that medium ground where it's like they're like, people will give them a lot of shit for like being like almost like a pop band, but it's like in a way they are, but they're what they love,
but not purely pop
structured way. It's like they kind of took all this thing that's like cool and they made it accessible for everybody. And like they're also it's their art. It's not like they're like not that, it's not
like they knew exactly what they were doing, and they loved what they were doing. So it's like that's cool to see. Like you can't shit on that. I mean, people do, but
No, it's interesting just to hear you guys talk about this, and like thanks for sharing all those stories, right? Because I can see different age groups of sorts, because I still remember this very vividly, and I can't remember if I narrated the story the last time you were in the podcast. Listeners, forgive me if you heard this more than once, but I still remember this was like similar to what you guys were talking about, like, MTV2, which aired late night, but in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, where I lived, there was a French music channel called MCM. And I remember flicking through the television, and I think it was like past 10, 11 at night. And all I remember seeing is this band and I could see this guy screaming. So I was like, okay, this is something I haven't seen. And the thing is, I
Mhm.
had already heard like 6 months prior to that Limp Bizkit. But Limp Bizkit, like we
Mhm.
just discussed, was more the rap infused kind of sound and all of that, right? And no
Right.
surprises for guessing which album attracted me to Limp Bizkit. We all know which one. So let's get past that one. But it was Crawling, the single for that. And I remember listening to it. And for all of us who are old enough to remember that you had like the track name that came like the first 5 7 seconds and then at the end. So I
Yeah.
had missed the first 5 7 seconds, so I had no idea who this band was.
Oh, yeah.
I can hear him screaming and you can see all of this, and I was like, oh my god, like this is like heavy, right? The heaviest kind of thing I've heard, because I still hadn't gone and listened to Korn as yet. So I waited immediately for the last like 5 seconds and immediately wrote as fast as I could in my notebook Linkin Park. Next day
Mhm.
went to school and was like, guys, have you heard of this band Linkin Park? And someone was like, oh yeah, I think I've heard of them. And I think Hybrid Theory was just, sorry, it was not Hybrid Theory, it was Me Tora that was
Oh,
out then. And within 1 year, it went from a band that me and my friends were listening to and thought were heavy to
Mhm.
everyone kind of having their MSN statuses and all in the end and all of that. So, like, that was like really devastating to us, right? I mean, like, for a
Yeah.
lot of people, it was like the Black Album, so to say. Like, oh my
Mhm.
God, they sold
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge
Uh,
influence, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But since we're talking this, I mean, and I want to kind of like also kind of go deeper, saying, what about new metal kind of attracted you to this sound? I mean, all of us, when I look at it, have actually heard like some heavy music itself. Billy, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, it's like the spectrum of things that people have done with it. It's like it's not really confined at all. Like you could listen to like you were saying before, Gary, Slipknot,
Mhm.
and it's like super heavy, super aggressive, and then something like Linkin Park or Limp Bizkit or I mean there or even like Papa Roach or something at the time.
Yeah.
It's just so different and there's not really any rules. Or like
Yeah.
recently I've been listening to like Head PE a lot. I got back in
Nice.
it. And there's just like the reggae influences or like there's new metal bands that are like industrial adjacent. Like you could do whatever you want with the genre and people have. So
Yeah.
that's kind of awesome.
I'll have to say, like, pretty much ditto. Like for me, like it's the fact that the genre and styles within that genre are so broad that there's no box. It's always outside of the box. Like that's how the genre was kind of like born and cultivated. Like there's so many styles of it, and like it, and it's cool because like one person or some people can like a certain amount of bands in that genre, but they may not like others. But it's the fact that there's so much for everyone in this genre and so much you can do with it, and that's why I like love it. Like obviously I've like kind of come full circle with the genre. Like it was like the first thing I'd like really loved as a style of music as a kid, and then moved away from it for many years, kind of, getting in more into like death metal, black metal, and like heavier stuff, and or like hardcore punk, or just all kinds of other genres. And then new metal was just this like thing on the back burner in the back of my head. Like those are my roots, and I kind of like tossed it away aside, admittedly, and then coming back to it full circle, it's like, wow, I actually like love this music like way more than I ever did. And I mean, I can say like now, like it's definitely like my favorite style of music to listen to,
Mm.
just because it's so broad and there's no limitation with it.
yeah.
That's yeah.
I agree with that too. Like exactly, like going off and like finding like yeah, like we went through like playing like death metal bands and like deathcore
Mhm.
that kind of stuff
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
expanding like throughout all these things and then coming back to finding like yeah like your roots like you're saying it's like the exact same flow of things is like how
yeah.
it all happened. What I think is too like with new metal is just like there's something like like there's just everything's unique. And I don't know, there's just something about it. Like you could call it, I feel like when you have metal, like metal, like you could listen to like the Black Dahlia Murder, you're like, okay, this is like, you wouldn't be like, this is new metal. You know what I mean? Like there's
Right.
blast beats and like just like constantly like like on the go, where it's like new metal can have that, but they have
Mhm.
this like groove element to it, and it's just
Yeah.
like it just has like this whole different feeling. Everything just feels big.
Yes.
Like all the like the music just feels like huge.
Larger than
And
itself.
yeah, like you listen to like the like just the tones and like the riffs and like chords, like the shit just fucking it just consumes you.
Hmm.
And like you're just like what? The same thing with like Linkin Park or like Slipknot, Papa Roach, all those bands just have these like thick sounds, and they're just like it. I don't know. It just I guess it's like it's hard to like really pinpoint like what specifically draws me to it, but I think
Yeah.
it's just because each band is different. Because then there's like Incubus, like older
Yeah. Yeah.
Incubus, like it's so like
Funky.
so funky. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, but it's like that element of it is just so cool. It's just like they took like this genre of music and like just did their own thing with it. They just added like funk and like weird like tribal stuff to it. It's like
Yeah.
System of a Down too. Like they just added their own like like Middle Eastern kind of like vibe to new metal and like or metal. It's almost like they all took rock and metal and just like we're just gonna fucking make it choppy and just I don't know they just have fun with it. I feel like they
Yeah.
all found their sounds and like somehow fits all together.
Yeah.
It's
And
like the
while you
energy about this thing.
Yeah, it's the
Oh yeah.
true, true, and I think that's the thing, right? I mean, uh, while a lot of the bands we're talking are about more like the energy and like the bigger sound, uh,
yeah.
what's very strange is I'm going to name a band which actually I considered very new metal when I first heard them, and I think there's still that album is Hoobastank. Hoobastank
Oh
were
yeah.
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 they were quite
Yeah. Yeah.
they were quite heavy, and I still remember. So like a lot of the bands at that time had that kind of sound, that production, and I think it became a thing. For me personally, I feel, and I think this goes back to me being 15, 16 when I discovered new metal, was just the teenage angst. And
Yeah.
it's very strange because last year, or yeah, last year and a half, where they did the Meteora 20-year anniversary and they
Mm.
released, all that material and the bonus tracks and all of that.
Mhm.
It ended up being like Linkin Park ended up being my top 5 listen to bands on Spotify. And the only
Nice.
reason
Same.
being is because I was like, hey, it's on Spotify. So,
Yeah.
might as well kind of listen to it on there. But I didn't realize how much I was listening to it until
I
the
think
end of the
Finding
year.
Myself and Lost became like two of my top songs listening to.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Lost. It's really good.
Finding Myself is so good too. It's just like
Yeah.
that chorus
Yeah.
is just
Okay, since we talked all about this, and I'll try adding some of the songs, what I can find, and do a segment on that quickly. But at which point, since you talked, and we've all three of you have kind of alluded to coming full circle, at which point did Billy and you decide, you know what, we're gonna now go back to our roots, so to say, of new metal and kind of start Timepiece?
I feel like it kind of just happened. We were in like I don't know, I guess like a genty kind of band, right? And like I mean, even that genre of music has kind of like its new metal roots in it. Like gent,
Hmm.
it's very similar, you
Hmm.
know, where it's just kind of it's more just it's groove and syncopated patterns and stuff like that. But it's like it's kind of got that new metal nostalgia almost in it. But
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of left that band and then we just started writing stuff together. It wasn't even like necessarily new metal. It was just like we just started writing all these different things, and then eventually it just kind of became Timepiece like a couple years ago, where it's like we were. I don't even know. I don't really know how to explain how we got here. To be honest, it's just like it just kind of happened. It just we went. We were previously under the name Surreal, and we went. We played where we probably put out like 8 songs or something like that. Changes was one of them that kind of carried over with Timepiece. And yeah, like that music just kind of happened. And then we started honing in when we're like, all right, let's be Timepiece. And we started like kind of honing in, like figuring out, like Billy just had all these riffs and like pieces together, and I was chopping them up, doing vocals, and we're just like figuring out our sound, and we just back and forth doing that. And I don't know, it just kind of happened to be honest. It was like, this is just like what we like, so it's like, let's just make what we want to hear, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think it was kind of we started writing, and through like taking off the filter of like we're trying to do this or we're trying to do that, it was just what naturally came out. And then we're like, oh shit, this is like the shit we grew up with. That makes sense. Let's just run with that.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially. Just flows out of us naturally.
Yeah, and what's cool is, fast forward all these years, you're like having a chat with the guy from India all about new metal, right? Look how small and how quick
awesome.
things escalated.
The community is amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Okay, and that was kind of the genesis of Timepiece. Gary, I know we've done this before, but come on. I'm sure you're not tired of retelling the story of how you re-fell in love with new metal. And how did you kind of realize that, hey, this is going to be like a separate project? And, you know, a year forward, you've also done like melds of sorts of new metal, if I may. So
Yeah.
Tell us about that evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, definitely. It all kind of started with like a couple different things. The summer of 2022, where I was watching one of the Woodstock 99 documentaries, and seeing Korn on there, kind of reignited nostalgic feelings about them, like growing up, them being like my first favorite band. And I was like, I was too young to go to Woodstock 99. I guess I was like in the summertime. So I was like 11 going on 12. Obviously I watched like clips or like news things about it on TV, wishing that I could go. But yeah, just watching the documentary kind of reignited those feelings I had for Korn. And then of course, when you dip into that nostalgia, it's like, well, yeah, what about the other bands of that time frame, era and culture? Is like, okay, well, now I got to go on a deep dive on some other bands I liked back then, and that opens up a can of worms, because it's like that coupled with the same time as finding out, of course, about the crazy ass moments in new metal history, social media phenomenon, all of that at the same time, and just kind of created this, feeling in me, or inspiration in me, to create a new metal project. And then that's kind of how Memorrhage was formed or started, just based pretty much purely on nostalgia, and also kind of as like a personal challenge, because it's like, well, I never made music like that before, but it was the first kind of music I loved. So let me like see what I can do with it, like kind of just take my range of influences in new metal, and a little bit outside of it too, to sprinkle in. And that's just kind of what it's been like since forming that project. The second album has been done for a little while, currently in the mastering stage right now, and so that'll come out like later this year. So the train for that project, is still going. We'll see how long it'll go. Basically, I always want to create music as long as I'm like passionate about it and have the time and energy. So like if at any point, like, oh man, I'm feeling kind of like tired, or like I don't have the energy, then time to take a break. But for now, as long as I'm feeling passionate about it, passionate about new metal for sure. At least passionate about like creating it. I'll still be writing records.
Yeah, and just to kind of go back, I still remember watching the Woodstock documentary with you, and discussing that. And while you were age 11, 12, looking at it in the States, I was watching it in India losing my mind. And I think as perspective and growing up kind of changes a lot of things for you, right? Like watching it
Yeah.
as an adult, like more than 20 years later, you're just like,
Mhm.
holy fuck.
This
What a
happened.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was what a fucking shit fest. I mean, did you watch the documentary, Billy?
I never actually saw the documentary, but the actual like all the footage from the show is in
Yeah.
consistent rotation. You know, I'm always
Nice.
throwing that
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
It's a crazy time capsule. Like all the crowds, the band, the energy bands and the energy collectively. What what a crazy time to be in that place at that time and point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great. Like one thing I always thought was neat is like whenever like when you're watching Limp Bizkit's set or something, you could see like everyone else from all the other bands just chilling on the stage behind them and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, what like
Wow.
it was like the central hub of everything that was going on at the time.
Yeah.
Like,
Amazing.
Yeah. But talking about your own bands itself, right? And I think this is something I was very curious about. As someone who kind of heard new metal at the start and now kind of creating or working on new metal projects, do you have like a different kind of approach or respect now for the music? Because, like, to me at that time, it seemed, and again, it seems simple relatively, right? But
Mhm.
let's be honest, writing something like that is not easy. Sometimes and one thing I've realized is sometimes the simplest things are the hardest. Is
Mhm.
that something, how is your kind of approach to the music, or at least listening to it now as a listener and as someone who's also creating that kind of sound? How's that changed?
I feel like yeah, it's definitely simple. I think when you think about it from like a virtuosic standpoint, like there's nothing super crazy going on like music theory wise or anything,
Mhm.
but it kind of like I feel like a lot of the creativity is in the nuance with this kind of music. So I think
Hmm.
that's kind of what I learned getting into writing this sort of stuff is like you could have a super simple riff or like a pattern or something, but like little tiny changes in like the way that the rhythm's going or like adding additional stuff in the production like samples and like
Yeah.
electronic elements and all that kind of stuff. It's like all the nuance that goes into creating the sound, I think.
Yeah, the entire texture is kind of like what you're talking about.
Right.
Is that similar
Yeah.
for you, Gary?
Yeah. Yeah. I would have to agree. Where it's like kind of like during but before I actually started creating like the music for Memorrhage, like during the phase of like listening, like the deep dive, the nostalgia, like listening back to these albums and songs, I'm like, yeah, it's simple sounding, but it's like when you really like dig deep into it, like the songwriting, the production aspect, like Billy said, the nuance in adding things or subtracting things as songs go from front to back. There's an art and science to that, and I think that's what maybe like haters of the genre fail to understand or don't want to pick apart. Like there's definitely more to it, even though it is uh at a surface level simple music, but it's all the nuance that's involved with it. And I kind of came to a realization when kind of writing it, starting just yeah with like guitar riffs. Obviously kind of like the groove is sort of like the backbone of the genre. The groove and like the way that the guitar and bass interlocks with like the drums and or beats, depending on what's going on production wise. It's like that may be simple, but it's also there's definitely an art to it, and it was fun. It was a fun challenge to kind of rewire my brain in terms of songwriting, recording, production techniques and tricks, I guess if you could say, to create new metal. So it's an underrated aspect, I would say. Like if I could give like advice to younger people wanting to get into guitar based music, um, write a new metal song and have fun with it. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I think we've talked enough about the projects. Before we dive in more, I think let's go first Timepiece and then probably play a track from Gonemage since that's released
Oh yeah, sure.
recently, or maybe
Okay.
Memorrhage, whichever. But
Okay.
let's talk a bit about Timepiece. For those who have no idea who Timepiece is and are listening to this, Billy, which track should we play from your album? Why? And you can tell us a bit about it.
Oh, that's tough. I guess I would probably say there's a track we didn't do like a video or anything for it, but on the most recent release called Starting Over, that I feel like was kind of it was actually one of the first songs we wrote together for this project. But it obviously wasn't one of the first ones we released, so we've been sitting on it for a while, but I think that one kind of encompasses a little bit of everything that we've been doing or that we've been trying to do.
Awesome. So here it is.
Lack of aspiration, please save your breath and listen close before I have someone point this cheap imitation to the circus show, cause I can't take this clown anymore. Wish I could sympathize with your choice so it clearly seems to me that bad was always that big wrong for your face. I can't be starting over again and again. I feel my motion leads me nowhere. Decide that I'm not done. I'm not the one to pin the blame, but if I had to guess the source, I'd say you need to check within yourself before running your mouth again. Silence says more. Guess I'll bite my tongue, chew, swallow my pride, cause I can't stand to see the misery you will away, no control. I can't be starting over again and again. I feel my motion leads me nowhere. Decide that I'm not done here. I'm not just starting over, rewriting all these years between the paths I follow. I found where I can be free again.
Okay, Billy, you'll have to send me the track if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to send it now?
No, no, whenever you get a chance, once we're hang
Oh,
up and
very
stuff
good.
like that. So I can
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
sure
add
thing.
it in. Okay, cool. Okay, that was Timepiece with starting over. And now this is I think the truly tough one. Gary, which project do you want to talk about in terms of new metal? Because you
Okay.
recently
Yeah.
had a release of Gonemage, which was again new metal themed. Um, let's, I don't know, take your pick. It's up to
Sure.
you.
Sure.
Why
Yeah.
do you introduce or talk about the track?
We'll go with Gonemage since it's the most current, and since we've talked about Memorrhage before for sure, but definitely want to highlight this new album by Gonemage under that project that I kind of it's almost like Memorrhage infected my Gonemage project. That was sort of in the back of my mind when I wrote this new album, because Gonemage has always been like very separate from Memorrhage, and like kind of more black metal roots mixed with like electronics and like chiptune, like the video game aspects. However, I got a pretty like harebrained idea that was kind of a, I guess you could say, sort of a happy accident, where this new Gonemage album is like a fusion of like new metal with black metal, which is at surface level sounds like an abomination, which it kind of is intentionally. But I had the most fun with it. So I'll pick the song. It's called Screambled, all one word, off the new Gonemage album, Spell Piercings. And uh, I guess a little bit of a description about it. This song and kind of the album is sort of like, what if Korn in 1998, 99, in between Follow the Leader and Issues, what if they got super high in the studio and stumbled across black metal and attempted to write an album, still as Korn, as a new metal band, bona fide, but influenced by black metal, and sort of that's the vibe. In the most complete bass nutshell, that's the description that was in my mind as I was writing this album. It's definitely weird. It's unusual, but it's super fun. Not for everyone, and that's okay.
Awesome. So if that intrigues you, here it is, Screambled.
Lost
Okay, that was Gonemage with Screambled. And, I must say, kind of come to a circle of sorts with this conversation, right? New metal is not something that's like resurgent in 2023 or 2024. It's been happening for a few years now, right? And
Mm.
I think it's pretty evident with a lot of the factors that we kind of talked about. Uh, what do you think individually? I mean, like, of course, Memorrhage, Timepiece are just two of the bands, but was there any surprise to the kind of response that you'll have got to your bands that kind of took you out of place? Because let's be honest, no one starts a new metal band now to kind of trend hop or kind of get back on, right? It just kind of, I think it's a coincidence of sorts. Uh,
Mhm.
Billy, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess the biggest surprise is that people like are into that at all anymore. Like I guess I've been sort of out of the loop before we started putting stuff out. But I kind of didn't really expect anyone to care about it just because I think the scene we came from was like Pete was saying before, pretty um like specific. Like you were either in a hardcore band or you were in a pop punk band or
Mhm.
you were playing like beat down music or something. So when we started doing that, everybody would sort of come up to us like after shows and be like, "Yo, this sounds like what I grew up with. Like that's awesome." And so there was a lot of people who sort of came out of the woodwork, people who I thought would like never be into this kind of stuff that like you discover are, and it's just been kind of like a repressed thing because it was out of the limelight for so long.
What about you, Gary? I'm very curious because you've definitely seen a lot and you've got multiple releases out, right?
Yeah. I would say it has been a surprise just to see like the reception for Memorrhage in like particular, especially um just because of like I had never been known to be into new metal like in I guess in like the public eye. Because obviously like I grew up with it. But that was before social media and stuff. So, there was nowhere to declare my love of that music really. And then coming back to it, that I guess like surprised a lot of people. So I think the people who like were kind of more familiar with my like back catalog, them those fans being into Memorrhage like really surprised me. Which is kind of a bonus because it's like I don't expect everyone to be into like every single project that I make. I make them for primarily for me because like I like the music. And then it's kind of a bonus or like a cherry on top that people like this project. They like Memorrhage or like they like the new Gonemage. So it's kind of seeing the people who are like more into like death metal and like grindcore latching onto Memorrhage. They kind of found things in it that they're like, oh, I think I actually like new metal now, or I like maybe this heavier end of new metal more than I thought. So like that was kind of cool to see. And then I guess also maybe people who and this is kind of surprising too, some people who are like have never even heard any new metal, which is kind of surprising. But I have some friends online who had never spent any time listening to like any new metal, like on their own volition, just sort of by accident, and they were surprisingly into Memorrhage. Or it was really just like one guy, but he was like, I don't really have a frame of reference for Korn or like Linkin Park or Slipknot, and I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I don't really like know any of their songs, and I was like, well, I don't think you'll like Memorrhage, and then but he put it on and he liked it, and I was like, you need to go check out those other bands then. Those are like influences. And he was like, I'll try to give some time to them. I was like, go do it. But yeah, so that was a surprise too.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the things that keeps surprising me, right? And yesterday, while kind of reading up, it was cool to go on Reddit, the new metal subreddit, and
Mhm.
just kind of see all of these bands being discussed and just the
Yeah,
entire sound, or like even like you said, right? What happened to this band?
yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy. I had no idea. I think like that's one of the things about Reddit, right? I think if you have like this really niche interest, I'm pretty sure you'll find someone who
Yeah.
also is into that. It's not just you, right?
That's how I found Timepiece. We found each other on New Metal Reddit. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much that I discovered on there. Even like meeting Gary through there. There's a bunch of other like smaller up and coming bands
Yeah.
that I've
There's a lot.
and a surprising amount of bands that were like that blew up in like at the turn of the century that I've just never heard that I'm
Yeah.
for the first time now, and it sucks kind of because like I'm like I'll never be able to go see them
Right.
play, but it's still cool discovering all that new old music.
I love that. Yeah. Because like that music won't go away. It still exists. And it's
Yep.
cool like to kind of go back and rediscover or discover something old. It's like, whoa, this is awesome.
Wow. So I think it'll be really meta in some sense if this episode ends up on the new metal Reddit subreddit
That would
of
be cool.
sorts,
That
right?
would be cool. Yeah.
It's like they met on this subreddit,
Yep.
as clickbaity as it gets. But Matt, seriously, I think we can do this for another hour, but I don't want to bore everyone listening in. I want to possibly do this before the end of the year again, like a catch up of sorts
Oh, yeah.
with you
Yeah.
guys. But I have to ask, and I'm going to leave everyone with this because if they've heard so much of our conversation, they definitely intrigued and want to know what individually y'all are up to and stuff like that. I mean, like I joked, Gary, but I'm pretty sure you at least have a couple more releases out this year. So
I do. I do. Yeah.
because Gary's going to take up more time of this, Billy, what can those listening in expect from Timepiece this year or maybe next also?
So we just put out our album a few months ago, and I think it's kind of in the writing process right now. Hopefully we'll get something out within the next couple months, or maybe at least by the winter time, I hope.
Hell yeah.
So aside
Any
from that, kind
live shows possibly?
that's tough for us because we're all originally from like the Hudson Valley in New York, but I've since moved out to California, so I'm in like the Sacramento area now. So shows are tough. It's got to be like super.
Yeah.
But I hope we could do something. Like maybe if I get some time to head back east, we'll do like a little, a string of shows or something along the coast or something like that. But nothing planned yet. Nothing set in stone.
Okay, flow's all yours, Gary. Go for it.
Yeah. So I guess like the next thing for me is the second Memorrhage album. I don't have an exact like release date or even a release month yet planned. It's kind of up in the air after I'm kind of done receiving the mastered files. And then also the cover art. I'm waiting. Basically, those are the two things I'm waiting on. Hopefully, maybe before the end of this month, I get those, and then I can kind of game plan a release. I definitely want it to be probably the end of summer or like before summer ends, something like that. So that's kind of the next thing in line. And then let's see, a couple other things are also in the works. They are two different new metal projects. But this goes back to the broad spectrum of new metal. You can have multiple different things in new metal because there's, like we said, there's no limitation. So there's like another album or a solo project, I guess, that's more on like the lighter end of new metal, and also a little bit more electronic influence, a little more dancey even in a couple of the songs, and more clean vocals from me, which is a challenge, but a fun challenge. There's a little bit of like the Memorrhage DNA kind of bleeding into this project. I don't have a name for it yet. It's been tough deciding a name for it, but that'll probably come before the end of the year. I'm kind of sitting on it because it's more, I guess you could say a little bit more personal. So I'm kind of refining it. Other than that, another new metal project is going to be a duo. Maybe more than a duo. I'm still deciding if I want to have like multiple other members in it, but I have a whole album written that I made last August, instrumentally. Like all the instruments are done, recorded, mixed, pretty much. It just needs vocals. And I'm deciding if I want this to be kind of a vocal by committee process. So I'm kind of auditioning like different vocalists for it. I have one in mind, like kind of as the main vocalist. He does vocals for this band called Hitbox, and they're really cool. They're kind of like they're like new metal influenced, like metalcore slash deathcore hybrid kind of beatdown stuff. Like they definitely have new metal influences, and that'll be interesting to see like his vocals. They're more in like the high like screaming range atop this music that I made. So that also no name yet, but we'll see what happens for that. Maybe that'll be before the end of the year too. So it's kind of those 3 albums, Memorrhage, and then 2 unnamed new metal projects albums.
You're like a machine, man.
It's a product of just like I guess time for sure. Time, like I don't have kids. I was working from home. I left, or I was laid off that job, unfortunately, but now I do delivery work. So I still kind of have like the time aspect. It's just a little bit different now, so I'm kind of adjusting to that. And then also my other hobbies are like kind of down right now. I kind of suck at video games. So I like video games, but I suck at them. We're like, man, I could just be doing music. But I still dabble with video games. You know, I just know that I'm not like that good to like play a bunch of hours or sink hours into a game. So usually when that happens, I'm like, I'm just not good at this game. All right, time to pick up my guitar and do this. Yeah.
Awesome, man. So lots to look forward to. And I figured that if we're doing this chat, maybe we should do it around another release from either Timepiece or whichever project releases first from Garry, right?
Sure. I'm down. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds good.
Awesome. So thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate you taking time. I'm finally glad we, California, Texas, and India, Mumbai, India, we finally managed to get all the times together. So thanks so much, guys, and see you all very soon.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So that was part 1 of the new metal nostalgia, as I'm calling it. In part 2, you'll get to hear music from bands that inspired Timepiece and Memorrhage, local bands that they were listening to, and even bands that I was listening to here in India. Yeah, I'm going to throw a few of those tracks too. Yeah, I managed to go through my archives and find a few MP3 tracks. So lots to look forward to in the next episode. As always, if you want to find out when it's out, follow me on Instagram or Twitter if you're still, or X if you're still on it. I'm Trendcrusher on all social media platforms, and you can also follow this podcast wherever you're listening to. If you're on Spotify, leave me a rating. But that's all for now. See you all very soon. Cheers.